Welcome, everyone. Today is our Tuesday Democracy Coffee Chat, and I am going to share my screen briefly. We are the Why Do You Vote Social Action Campaign, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan project of money out, voters in. And our campaign focuses around 7 bridging issues that most Americans agree on. Today, we are giving away 2 awards for the Spark the Vote Social Media and Film Challenge. And I first wanted to play for you the winner of the Supreme Court Award.
Why do I vote? Let's take a spin in my boat. You know the president appoints to the Court of Supremes. You've seen 1,000 memes about bribery, perjury, bodily autonomy. And isn't it some kind of joke? The way they stay on there until they croak. And when you think that they'll recuse, they might just still refuse. They got everything and nothing to lose. For those Supremes in a row, there ain't no ethical code. Just whatever suits their mood. So who abides? Not this dude. Why do I vote? Plenty of reasons this season. You know we've got no king, no castle, no moat. So why? Well, why don't you vote?
So thank you. That was the very talented Aaron Steinberg. Aaron, I see you're with us. Do you want to share your inspiration for this song? And thank you. You're going to get $5,000 for winning this amazing Supreme Court video song.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Well, thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Well, Supreme Court is a very super important topic and a thorny one. And there's also a dose of ridiculousness behind it all, hence the style of the song. But I see we don't have that many entries. So maybe what we should do is I'll just take some of it. Why don't we open it up to hopefully 4 other more videos, participants, winners? What do you think, Holly?
Well, that would be very generous. Yes, you were the only one that did a Supreme Court entry. So that would be most amazing if you want to share it forward. So we would be happy
Sure.
to divide it up. Yeah.
Let's share it forward. It's such an important topic, and unless something changes, people stay there until they drop dead, which is something we also might want to revisit, in my opinion. So maybe more people will choose to address this important topic.
Yeah, they say in the next election, the next president might choose up to 3 Supreme Court justices. So I really appreciate your generosity. So we would like to, you're okay with, you said you wanted to share it with 4 more people, so divide it up to
Sure,
1,000. So we will have,
sure.
yeah, we
Sure,
will,
let's do that.
let's do that. Okay, so we will have 4 more awards for best videos on the Supreme Court of $1,000 each. And let's give people 2 weeks to create something that's still before the election. So we will add that to our website and take submissions. And I love your song. Please, everybody, go and let's in the chat share the link to that song.
Yeah, give me a few minutes.
Yes. Okay, wonderful.
I'm not on my own computer, so I'm a little discombobulated. Give me a moment and it will happen.
Thank you. Okay, and the next up, I am going to share. The next winner is our best dance video. So the next, I'm going to share the winner here. And it's not just dance, it's a whole story. I love this piece.
Here is the line, here is the clock. The polls close here in about 5 minutes.
Too close to call again in Florida. Just 165 votes.
Only 35 votes.
Look, everyone is talking about voting. Voting is our right and our voice.
Yes, Babaji, but none of these kids these days care about that. All they care about is their phone.
ਉਹ ਰਾਤ ਦਿਨ ਫੋਨ ਤੇ ਲੱਗੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਹਾਏ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਹਾਏ ਬੀਜੀ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਪੁੱਤ
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁੱਤ Putter, you're 18 now. Have you thought about voting?
Yeah, what's your plan, beta? Baba ji, BG, why are you always talking about voting?
My one vote won't change anything, so what's the point?
You're wrong. Your one vote could change everything. Imagine this. Say we had election at home, or kitchen election, and everyone voted and you didn't vote. And everyone decides only salad for the whole week. No more aloo de paratha. How would you feel?
What? That would be disaster. But elections don't decide what I eat, Babaji. Okay, imagine this, beta. You like Starbucks, right?
Yeah. Imagine there was a vote and nobody picked your favorite what do you call it? Caramel maki what?
Caramel, maca, chitta, tippi, litti, whatever you call it.
Babaji, it's caramel macchiato with extra whip. Exactly. Imagine nobody voted for that and all you got was plain black coffee. No whipped cream, no caramel drizzle, just regular boring black coffee.
No whipped cream, no caramel drizzle, just plain black coffee? That's a nightmare.
See, when you don't vote, someone else decides what you get. And they aren't going to pick your caramel, whippy, whatever. Voting isn't just about big things. It's about your choices. You wouldn't let someone else choose your drink, so why let them choose your future? One vote can change everything, just like how one wrong order can ruin your whole day. So whether it's your caramel whippy macchiato or your rights, don't let others decide for you. Vote and make your voice heard. हाँ बीजी पिंड तो याद आ गई
Babaji, you're going viral! Look, your speech is getting likes. People love it when you speak straight from the heart.
What तेरी
Menu भी दिखाओ. Oh wow, Babaji, you're an Instagram star now. When are we starting the reels?
होना
Wow, follow my lead. Like this. Like this. Like this. Okay? You guys, go back.
मेरी काली एक्टिवा दा एक दिन खड़ गया हैंडल फड़ के पानी पानी होगी मैं पट्टू हाँ करवांदे अड़के कहंदा कुर्ती तेरी ते मैनू लटकन पट दे दूजा लटदा कोबरा गिरदा नी मेरे पिंड दे गेड़े मारदा मुंडा बिना वजह तो फिरदा नी मैं भी देखदी ओनू बड़िया दिना तो ओ भी देखदा चिरदा नी मेरे पिंड दे
I just love that video. I see
Thank
you
thank you.
got so clap. So Harvald, why don't you introduce the team and tell us the amazing story behind the beginning of this is Nishkam TV, who submitted one on many of the issues, and this is your winning video.
Well, thank you to Why Do You Vote, Holly Mosher and team for picking our entry. I'm so proud of these kids who are in this call. So my name is Harbaldeep Singh. I'm executive director at Nishkam TV. And Nishkam means selfless. So as you can see, I'm a Sikh. So since September 11th, hate crimes against Sikhs has been on the rise. And we have seen so many attacks happening, one in Oak Creek in 2012. And a few years back, there was an attack in Indianapolis at the FedEx facility. So as a filmmaker, I decided, what can I do? Because a lot of our Sikh kids go through bullying because of their articles of faith, because of the hair and the turban they wear. So I thought I will empower our youth to tell their own narrative. Let the world know who Sikhs are, how peaceful, who believe in welfare of all, and with the fifth biggest, largest religion in the world. So a lot of people don't know in the US. So I think that's what in 2016, I decided
to empower our youth. And till now, we have done 14 short films. We have done three full-length feature documentaries. And I'm very proud to tell these students, one of the documentary is acquired by PBS last year. So it's been running on PBS World Channel. So we have been trying to tell the world the power of storytelling, how storytelling can bring this world together as we see a lot of polarization, as we live in these echo chambers. So at Nishkam TV, we are based out of Boston. Now we have expanding it across the US. So we have three different streams. So we do what we call Nishkam Academy, that we do workshops to teach kids the art of storytelling, filmmaking. Then we have Nishkam Studio, through Nishkam Studio. These kids who are trained in the art of storytelling and filmmaking, so they become they write their own scripts, then they do different projects like short films and documentaries. And then we have a Nishkam TV, which is our distribution. So we're a digital channel. So we do distribution across different platforms. And we recently have a tie-up with the biggest Indian TV channel in the US called Just Broadcasting. So I have some of our students who are part of this project. And since Nishkam TV is a nonprofit organization, it's supported uh, by parents. So I have two parent advisors on this call. So Rajni, she's a mom of Ekam Singh. And then we have Navneet, she's a mom of Bhumit Singh. So I would like these stars, I call them our PSA stars, to talk about that. And they all are from a different team. So Nishkam TV has three different teams. We have a content team. So the content team wrote scripts. Then we have a talent team. So these are the kids who are interested in acting, or they're interested in hosting TV shows or interviewing doing documentaries. So we have our talent team. We have Vanshika, we have Nivedita, Niva, and then we Pumit, they're part of the talent team. And then Ekam Singh, he's representing our production team. So he's the one who directed it and did this amazing production. So thanks again, Holly, for this opportunity. This was a great platform for our kids to show their talent.
Yeah, we'd love to hear just from the kids directly for a minute.
Let's he has a white beard or not.
Yeah, I couldn't get the white beard, unfortunately, but yeah, I can start off. So, I mean, I never played such a big role in the Shkam TV's like videos, so it kind of felt it was like a new experience being like kind of like a star of a video, and that was really fun. And I've observed them since they started, and they're so hardworking, and just like that culture is just they're inspiring to me, to be honest. And just like how much effort they put in, I have much respect to the entire team. And so when I was approached like with this lead role, I was like, why not? It's playing a big role in a pretty big video now. I mean, people are liking up and everything. So it was kind of a interesting experience, and it was definitely well worth it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bhumi.
Want to talk about production process?
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, my name's Akam. I'm 16 years old, and I've been part of Nishkam TV for the past 8 years. So I've been learning filmmaking since I was 8 years old. So I've had some really good experience, and a lot of people think just because we're kids, high school students, doesn't mean we can use the equipment that people use in like Hollywood professional levels. But that's what we actually did. We used two Blackmagic 6K cameras with professional mixed pre-sound recorders, Sennheiser microphone. And then even in the editing process, we start off in DaVinci Resolve with the color correction and color grading. And then from there, we brought it to Final Cut Pro. And all the graphics that you saw in the video was done with Apple Motion. So we use a lot of different professional aspects in this video to create this production. So thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I just wanted to say how much it is encouraging to me. I'm 79 years old, so when I hear about young people who are enthusiastic about giving messages and stories that are for good in the world, I find that very encouraging. That when I'm leaving, I'll be leaving with a lot of wonderful energy continuing. So thank you to the organization, and thank you to the young people who want to be part of it.
Thank you.
Okay. And then before we get on to the next part of the programming, I just want to encourage everybody. There's so many of our talented filmmakers on this call. I'm so excited about all of your films. Terry made a great song. Barry made a great piece. Let's see who else is on here. Well, one of our speakers, Reverend Caleb, has made a few. So I encourage you all to make, oh, Michelle, you have a great song. I love your song. I encourage everybody to go on and watch all the videos, like, share, pay them forward on socials. Soon we're going to have a website with all the social links like I just shared now. And I'm so excited and grateful to Aaron for paying his forward that we will have 4 new prizes. So please put on your creative thinking caps and make a new one about the Supreme Court and how important elections are. And I know one of our guests, Emily Arndt, is making a film, and I will have her share next. I want to show her trailer, and I think it's very apt because we are a bridging effort, as I mentioned. The 7 topics that we've focused on are ones that most people might be surprised that over 70% of Americans agree on. So I want to show this trailer because a lot of people feel really divided right now when we are more aligned than we'd think.
Do you know that if you put 100 black ants and 100 red ants in a jar, nothing will happen? But if you shake the jar hard, the ants start killing each other. The red ants consider the black ants their enemies, and the black ants consider the red ants their enemies. But what about the one who's shaking the jar?
Well, the political division in the country undeniably deep right now.
The big question on a lot of people's minds, can Americans come together and heal? How?
I'm Emily Arndt. 3 years ago, I set out to discover whether Americans are as divided as we seem.
Politics can tear your family apart. It's happened to all our families.
Do you think America's divided?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
It turns out we are, but probably not in the way you think we are.
When you aren't ever actually in real face-to-face contact with people who maybe see the world a little bit differently than you, or vote differently than you, then it's easy to believe the worst about those people.
Is it like to have discussions right now with so many different
I don't have those discussions.
There are opportunities for coming together. The problem is that Democrats and Republicans just see each other as bad people. And so therefore, you can't work with someone that you believe is like, dining with the devil.
So, where do we go from here?
We have to think. We have to roll up our sleeves. We have to engage the world around us.
And everybody has a story to tell that is a piece of a larger story, and you just have to be open to hearing all of those pieces.
America's also just a bunch of neighborhoods that's just full of people down the street. There is nothing larger than that.
After being on this journey, I've realized that the most important question is, how can Americans heal this divide? Our democracy is at risk, and I need your help to finish telling this story. The future of American democracy is dependent upon our ability to self-reflect and actively work on fixing this issue. Otherwise,
if we fail, if America fails, global democracy is gone. And so we have a responsibility to the entire planet to find our way again and to lead it.
I'm going to welcome Emily to talk a little bit about what you've been finding and how we can all work to have this conversation in a bridging way and to move forward on these issues that most Americans actually agree on.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Emily. I'm the maker of this film, The Space Between. And can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I started this film about 3.5 years ago as a grad student, and I wanted to know if Americans are as divided as we seem. And so I started by interviewing 4 young people and found out that we we have a lot of similarities, but also that politics is getting in the way of us seeing those similarities. And so my film is kind of like an expose about how the manipulative powers that are around us, manipulate us to believing that we're more divided than we think. And we're all kind of getting caught up in the political landscape. And, the media from both sides are telling us the other side is evil, and, that people from the other side are evil. And this is, fairly new in American politics, in this century. So I definitely feel like we need to do something to bridge divides. I'm all over social media. You guys can find me on, the Space Between Film 2024. I can put these in the chat. But I'd love to know what everybody's initial reaction is. Before I go, I'll post the website in the chat so everybody can go there too and learn more. But I'm curious if anybody has any initial reactions or questions.
I see a celebration from. Love it.
Thank you, Carolyn.
And Terry has her hand up.
Hi, I didn't want to be the only one talking, but since nobody else raised their hand yet, first of all, congratulations. And I'm just so inspired. Another young person who really cares about this. I think the one reaction that I love the message. The one reaction that I have, and I don't know what to do with this, is that the whole sort of both sides are doing it. I don't know that that's exactly accurate anymore. I mean, maybe at a local level, or okay, two things: one, leadership, and two, everyday reactions. Because I have a mission on Twitter, which is to try to find little moments of respectful conversations with people who are of different opinion, and it's fascinating. The thing that keeps coming up is what people believe. And so I would like to see this expanded. No blaming, but just maybe letting people say what they're believing. Because I had a conversation with a woman in Pennsylvania. She was a lovely woman, owned a coffee shop. So I took a chance and I said, "Can you please tell me why there are so many Trump signs around?" And this lovely woman who told me how she helped a young boy with mental illness and has 3 disabled adopted children, said, "Oh, of course, we love Trump. He's wonderful." And then she listed every single, what I would say, lie about him. And all I could do, I said, okay, and we talked a little bit, and I said, "Do you think I'm vermin?" And she said, "What? Why would you even ask that?" And I said, "Well, I listened to his rally. I'm a Democrat. I'm going to vote for Kamala." And he said, "I'm vermin." Well, that was wrong. He just shouldn't have done that. And she's voting for him. So there's something about what, I don't know if it has to get mixed in with what you're doing or not, but something about the intentional creating of a divide as opposed to responding to the creating of a divide. And I'm not quite sure where to go with that, but I'm very, very grateful that you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, that's Terry. Thank you for that. That's a question a response that I get often, is that people say there's, there's a lot of disinformation out there, and I agree, but defining disinformation or misinformation, there's also, that does happen from both sides in the way that stories are framed. And a resource that I can recommend that I actually interviewed somebody from is All Sides Now. It's called All Sides Now, and they have on their social, they have news stories that are current and show which, yes, thank you, Terry. They have, the news story from the left, the right, and the middle to show you how different stories are told according to the outlet. Now, I am going to address I'm forgetting the difference between misinformation and disinformation right now, but I am going to be addressing that in the film, and going to be talk about how there are sort of two different realities that we're living in. And again, it's not about blame. It's just like you said, it's just about acknowledging that we have different thank you, Carolyn. Yeah, misinformation is deliberate. Or is that what you said? Let's see. It's just gonna have me.
Disinformation is deliberate.
Disinformation is deliberate. Yeah.
D for disinformation, D for deliberate. That's how I remember it.
Okay. But I really appreciate that question, and it is one that I get a lot, so I know that I need to address it in the film.
Well, thank you, Emily. I know we have we have two other speakers, and I wanted to also share Renaldo Pearson is doing a walk for the right to vote. He couldn't be on the call because he's starting the walk. It's The Path to Freedom Leads Through Repair, and they are doing a march. And I wanted to share the information about that. I also shared one more link for the petition for the walk, the Freedom to Vote in Georgia, with what's happened in there. We heard from, on our previous call, we heard from Greg Palast about what's going on in Georgia. And so Renaldo Pearson and his group has some great resources. They're doing this march and their Let Georgia Vote information. So please go there and check it out if you care what's happening. I mean, we should all care what's happening in Georgia. I would love to next welcome Wilfred Chirinos from Generation Citizen to tell us about your work for democracy.
Holly, I wasn't able to catch. I heard my name. That's all I was able to hear.
Yes, I wanted you to share, we were going to highlight some of Generation Citizen and your amazing work over there. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to talk about Generation Citizen and our work. So we are a national nonprofit dedicated to providing civic education training and curriculum to teachers in schools. We do our work through, at the statewide level as well as the local level, working with individual schools and teachers. We provide a programming and training on specifically civics-based education. So having students engaged with local problems and local issue areas, and work with their teachers in their classrooms to kind of work their way down to, finding policy solutions to these issues while also engaging stakeholders, doing research, both quantitative and qualitative. And students get to engage not only with their communities, but also with their peers, with their schools. And as part of this, endeavor, we've also launched Rise Vote 2024 campaign, which is our nonpartisan approach to the election this year. Rise Vote stands for registering, informing, supporting, and empowering young voters. Research from Circle and the Harvard Institute of Politics showed that young voters, especially, were not necessarily apathetic, but just weren't equipped with the necessary tools to be able to participate in this year's elections. And so, in response to that, we developed a toolkit, provided a series of teacher trainings, and launched a communications initiative called My First Vote, where we asked young people and really people across generations, what were the issues that brought them to the ballot box, and what were the reasons outside of, whatever partisan affiliations or, candidates, what were the issues that brought the young people to, or brought people to the ballot box. So yeah, that is my spiel. I'm always happy to connect with folks offline. I'll drop my email in the chat as well. But thank you, Holly, and thank you all for being flexible with me and my Wi-Fi issues here.
thank you, Wilfred. I've shared the link to Generation Citizen, and then I love the RISE, the acronym for the RISE vote. I've shared that link as well in both our spreadsheet and here in the chat. And then our last guest today, before we open it up fully to more Q&A, is Reverend Dr. Caleb Lyons. So I see you're on the call. I wanted to share, before we welcome him, I wanted to share one of his beautiful videos for the challenge as well. Let me find it here. Okay, this isn't the one on democracy, but this is a very important, beautiful piece.
Why do I vote? Well, as a Christian pastor and an ally of the LGBTQ plus community, I recognize that it is a theological necessity to vote, that if I really want to follow Jesus, I have to vote. And that's because Jesus told us that we have to love our neighbors. Right now, there are over 500 anti-LGBTQ plus bills that are being tracked, bills that are designed to strip away the rights of LGBTQ plus folks. The gospel tells us that we must always be on the lookout for those who are being marginalized and to ensure that we are acting in ways that lift up those marginalized communities. And so if we see legislation that is being introduced that actively targets groups of people, if we see political candidates who are actively targeting groups of people, then we have to, if we want to be followers of Jesus, we have to vote in such a way that protects those classes that have been marginalized. That's why I vote, because Jesus would.
And with that, I welcome Reverend Dr. Caleb Lyons.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to be with you all today. I appreciate it, and I'm honored to be here to talk about democracy. Democracy means that the power in society is with the people. And that's something that we at takebackchristianity.org recognize fully and recognize it as a theological concern. This election is important because democracy is at stake. Now, I've posted about this on social media, and I've had people tell me that they're not particularly concerned with preserving democracy, nor do they think that we should live in a democracy. Instead, their primary focus is leadership that promotes authoritarianism. And that's terrifying to me, and I hope that it's terrifying to all of us. It certainly should be, because that is a mentality of certain sects of our society. I don't think, though, that that's the position of the vast majority of Americans. And of course, it's not a Christian position. Jesus spent his entire ministry confronting an authoritarian regime which exploited his people, the Judeans. And he envisioned a world in which everyone, absolutely everyone, had enough, where all people, including immigrants and refugees, because Jesus was a refugee, were welcome, where everyone was afforded inherent worth and dignity, where all had access to health care, which he distributed for free, I might add, where peace ruled our hearts and justice permeated all things. He called that vision that he had for the future the reign of God. People who claim to follow Jesus must work for that kind of a world, or else they're not following Jesus. And that's the problem. There has been so much other than that that has been claimed in Jesus's name in the United States today. And that's why we launched Take Back Christianity, to change what has become the dominant narrative in Christianity in the United States, a distorted version of the faith that would be unrecognizable to Jesus himself. The religious right has funneled money into politics to manipulate scripture and to turn people into single-issue voters. This jeopardizes democracy and, quite frankly, has promoted Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism is, of course, the melding of Christianity and politics with the intent of legislating beliefs, which is different than legislating values. Letting our values guide our votes is something that we all do, and our values are shaped by a variety of things, including our life experiences, cultures, contexts, and belief systems. So, for instance, if I, as a Christian, believe Jesus when he says that we have to welcome the stranger, then that means I necessarily have to support immigration reform. Legislating belief, on the other hand, is dangerous and it is anti-democratic. For instance, passing a law that the Ten Commandments must be displayed in public schools violates both the Establishment and Free Exercise clauses of the First Amendment to the Constitution. That is Christian nationalism. Is it any surprise that Christian nationalists are more likely to support political violence and other anti-democratic ideas? TakeBackChristianity.org provides pro-democracy resources that are interested in keeping the power with the people, because that's what Jesus taught. We're all better off when we're in this life together, making decisions together. And so at TakeBackChristianity.org, we provide nonpartisan tools to interpret key election issues with an authentic, intellectually honest, pro-democratic lens. Our democracy is at stake, folks, and we need to keep big money out of the political process, and we need to take back Christianity. May it be so. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Caleb, or Reverend Lyons. I don't know how you prefer to be called.
Just Caleb, please.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I know just having your voice in this space has been so inspiring to me, because I know a lot of us have, with what we saw with Emily's film and what we were talking about with Terry's questions before. It's like, how do we have these conversations? And we do. Last week we had a big talk on the extremities and how it's just, the Christian nationalism really leading a lot of issues. And Michelle, I know we were talking about what you saw back on in your paper, decades ago. And as a filmmaker, I used to do commercials. And one of my first commercials, you get a job and you don't know what it's going to be for. But I was living in Wisconsin at the time. I was hired to go out to Denver for Denver School Choice back in the 90s, and not knowing what that was about and how it was about getting government money to put into religious schools, And so I was glad I actually did the job, so I learned about it more way back then. But it's interesting, the decades of work that has gone into this and the money that has gone into this, so that, and then you can see the sway that, once that money is siphoned off, that it goes into the hands of a few people at the top of those companies, and then they can do more and more. So I thought today, as we're talking about big money in politics, Money Out Voters In was founded after the Supreme Court decision on Citizens United. And this issue of money in politics really is interlinked with all these other issues. And it's getting harder and harder to fight because the money is bigger and bigger. In 2008, $717 million were spent on the election. And I love to put this as a question. How much do people think was spent in 2020? And we don't even know yet what was spent this year. If $717 million was spent in the 2008 election, how much do you think was spent in 2020? Terry's guessing $3 billion. Anybody else? Well, I'll tell you, it was 14 billion. It was 20 times more. And now I can't even imagine what's been spent already. So it affects everything. And then you see nonprofits suffering, like there's not enough money, all this money keeps going into elections, and then other things get left behind. So this is a really important issue to talk about and interload, whether it's climate, everything is connected. And then we lead, to authoritarianism, and that's something that is truly I'm shocked that that is the response you're getting. So thank you for bringing that to this conversation.
Holly, could I ask Caleb a question?
Sure.
I am so thrilled to hear the honest and heart-centered approach that you shared, Caleb, bringing a true sense of spirituality through Christianity to care for people, for equity, for that was beautiful. And it's shocking to me. I didn't even know the term Christian nationalism till about 7, 8, 9 months ago. And then I heard it, and then I read it and researched it and found out that the research showed about 30% of the population actually holds the belief of Christian nationalists that this should be a Christian country and it should invade politics, it should invade business, it should control everything. And then I was talking to Michelle, and she said she recognized that back when she was in college and wrote a paper about Christian nationalism, which blew my mind, shocked me. And so I'm so thrilled to hear. I have never, since the 8 or 9 months since I pay a lot of attention to the election, and since I encountered the Christian nationalist idea as a threat that is literally controlling, giving Trump like 30% of his most of his people are Christian nationalists. I've never heard someone who identifies as a Christian actually critique and point out the danger and the anti-Christianity that is built into Christian nationalism until what you just said. That was spectacular, and what you're doing is amazing. So my question is, how much of the Christian community is aware that there is a massive divide between Christian nationalism, which supports Trump, or Christianity, which basically supports love? Is there anyone else out there? And I encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. I support you 1,000%. And are there people like you out there in the world, because our country and our future needs you desperately?
Not only, thanks so much for that. I appreciate it. And not only are there others of us out there, but the vast majority of Christians take this stance. The problem is that those with the loudest voice tend to be folks who are misusing scripture and promoting Christian nationalism. And so this isn't by accident either. This has been planned over the course of several decades, and it has to do with the exact issue that we're talking about today, which is money and power in politics. So what has happened is that the religious right has funneled money into a certain political party to ensure that people become single issue voters and keep that political party in power. And so this has been very intentional. And so most Christians recognize that it is not okay to try to legislate belief. And certainly it's anti-democratic. It's also a clear violation of the separation in church and state, so it's unconstitutional as well. So I don't think that we can actually be real democratic, loving Americans and want to try to legislate belief. And so certainly it's also contrary to the teachings of Jesus, who grew up in this kind of anti-imperial realm, right? Like his whole ministry was formed under the thumb of oppression. And so Christians who understand that we ought to be taking care of the most vulnerable people in our society, because that's who Jesus was. That's what Jesus taught. And so, yes, there are other Christians out there. Yes, most Christians believe that we ought to confront Christian nationalism. And as I saw in the chat, one thing I should say is that Take Back Christianity deals with Christian nationalism and talks about how it is that Christian beliefs have been manipulated and have been exploited by Christian nationalists to keep people in power. But that's one of only of several issues. That's one of 8 issues that we talk about that has been manipulated by people to try and control others, to try and influence the course of this election. And that's what it's all about. It's about manipulating scripture to influence the election.
That's fantastic. So your movement is growing.
Yes, yes. So I think, though, that there needs to be, one of the goals of Take Back Christianity is to do exactly that, to take back the message of Christianity to a more authentic message of Jesus, because the loudest voice is I think, a manipulated voice. It is not authentic to the original life and teachings of Jesus. And we all know how religion can be misused like this. And in the United States, Christianity is being misused to manipulate people, to get people to vote against themselves and to support anti-democratic ideals. So, but the vast majority of Christians don't believe that stuff. So we need to take back the narrative. We need to change the narrative to keep people from voting in these ways. And so I see Susan's commendation there that if you have a network that you can share Take Back Christianity to change the narrative, we appreciate all sharing of those things widely so that we can help change that narrative.
Thank you for what you're doing.
And I see Terry, you have your hand up. Yes.
I just remembered that you guys are nonpartisan. So does that include conversation here in this group?
Everybody has their own opinion, but yes, our project, Why Do You Vote? The series is nonpartisan. And today we were talking about, our issues are bridging issues.
Okay.
Obviously, everybody has their own opinion. So when you speak, you're speaking for yourself.
Okay. Well, the reason I asked is because I'm a former Roman Catholic nun, and now I'm also a trained chaplain. And it took me 50 years to figure out what my spirituality was going to be. One thing that was very helpful to me was to learn how, starting 45 years ago, it was built into one of the parties' plan to gain power. And it was because they needed the evangelical vote, because evangelicals weren't really political back then. And it was a whole group of people that they could appeal to. So they picked abortion, immigration, and I forget the other one, the border. Well, that's immigration, abortion, and I forget the third one. Anyway, and just emphasized that and managed to gather well, first the evangelical Christians and then the Catholic bishops. And in fact, I'm really happy, as complicated as this is, but the Pope really did tell the American bishops, you have to stop promoting one candidate because of abortion. So that was a step. But anyway, it was helpful to me to realize that it's part of the manipulation. And I think the more and more we can make people aware of the manipulation and the money behind the manipulation, that is helpful in terms of empowerment, because it's one thing to say, yeah, no, I'm Christian and I don't believe this. It's another thing to become active. And why do we need to become active? So that history, which I learned from Heather Cox Richardson, was really helpful to me.
Wow. Great.
Terry, I also build on that and say thank you for that. That one of the things that we do at TakeBackChristianity.org is go through these issues and go through the history of that and go through, like, this is how this became a topic. Like abortion, for instance, the Southern Baptist Convention passed 3 resolutions in the 1960s supporting a woman's right to choose. It was not originally a faith issue. And for the exact reasons that you're talking about, that it was intentionally chosen to manipulate people.
Can you share that again? In the 50s? Wait. Caleb? Yeah.
Yeah, and the history is on our website. But yes, the Southern Baptist Convention passed 3 separate resolutions supporting a woman's right to choose before this intentional strategy that Terry was talking about was developed to get evangelical voters in particular, and Catholic voters to go out to the polls and vote in favor of a certain party. And so it was intentionally chosen as an issue to galvanize people to the polls, to make people single issue voters, when it was not originally considered a faith issue at all.
Wow. And wow, Michelle, I saw you had your hand up too a minute ago. Oh.
Yeah, I was just going to hi. Thank you so much, Caleb, and to all the wonderful video artists, and congratulations to those of you who won Why Do You Vote? I just wanted to throw in also the Supreme Court's function in this erosion of the separation of church and state, which I think began to gallop in the Hobby Lobby decision. And that's what Justice Ginsburg warned of, that they were beginning to line out the separation of church and state, and that has continued. So our threat, the Supreme Court's threat to democracy and their very, glaringly obvious rewrite of the Constitution, has the potential and is currently undermining all of our work in all of these spaces, as they are so radical and with a very tainted, in my opinion, and view of how faith should operate in our lives. And that was it.
And Michelle, of course, that was intentional as well, right? I mean, one of the reasons that people have supported particular political candidates is to gain control over the Supreme Court for a number of reasons, including the erosion of the separation of church and state. And so I think part of that also has to do with the fact that a lot of folks don't really understand what the separation of church and state is. And I think that that's true in our faith communities. I think it's true in our broader society, that the separation of church and state doesn't mean that you can't talk about politics, but it means that you don't endorse particular political candidates. And it has to do with largely with the government's relation to us and not our relation to the government. And so I think that it's really sad that we don't often have a real clear understanding of the separation of church and state. And certainly this whole notion that we want to get rid of the Johnson Amendment, for instance, which is what there's a movement in the Supreme Court to get rid of now, right, would allow nonprofits, all nonprofits, but charities and religious institutions in particular, to endorse political candidates. And I'll tell you, folks, exactly what's going to happen if that is removed is that money is going to be funneled by PACs into 501c3s. And that's the danger. When the Johnson Amendment was passed, it was uncontroversial. There was no discussion on the floor, and it was passed unanimously. I think it was 1954. And so the fact that we want to erode this has to do with the change in our society and the changing view of what religious organizations want to be able to do.
Yeah, and I want to highlight that this also brings up, what we're saying, these issues, whether it's women's bodily autonomy or the issue of immigration. We see the real life consequences of women dying and people being killed in hate crimes, which was bringing it back to Harbaugh and, the impetus for him to start his film project was the hate crimes within the Sikh community and how people just, like it ends up in people dying. And this is really so important that we combat this. I know we are at the top of the hour almost, so I just wanted to bring that full circle and, invite Harbaugh to speak on that again, and to also just thank everybody. This is such a wonderful conversation today. As every Tuesday, we're having these great conversations. But thank you for bringing this to our attention, the Johnson Amendment, and what the direction that certain people are wanting to take our democracy.
Hi, Holly. This is Jennifer. I also just wanted to thank Harbaugh and the team that produced the film, because I think it's just so important for us to see diverse faces, diverse cultures, diverse people in America coming together and talking about the importance of voting and the importance of democracy, because it is one area where we do have more in common than not. And I think it's just so important that we keep promoting the diversity of our country and the promise that brings.
I think that's great. I think that's what make America great, diversity and the kind of experiences and the diversity of thought process we bring as a team to build on top of that. And the Emily, if you're still on the call, your project is so close to my heart, the space in between, because what social media is doing, it's creating those echo chambers. The algorithms are created in a way so that people really meet and interact with the people with the same thought process. So that diversity of thought process is going away. I think it's a big danger to the whole democracy with the social media. Definitely, they're making money out of ads, but again, there's a big side effect to it. And really appreciate this platform. We as a Six believe in America. We believe in diversity. We believe in uh, the welfare of all. So there is a saying in Sikh religion called Sarbat da Pala. That means welfare for all. So every day when we go to Gurdwara, our Sikh temple, every day we say in our ardas, which is in our prayers, Sarbat da Pala, let the humanity grow together. Our roadmap can slow down. We don't have to rush for everything. Sometimes it's good to be slowed down, but we need to make sure we include everybody together. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I've shared my contact information. And again, we need to empower our future youth. I think that's what we are trying to do at Nishkan.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Wilfred, Caleb, all the filmmakers. Michelle, I see you're still on here. I love your song. Harvald, Rajni, all the kids, Akam. I know a lot of them had to go. Terry, I love your song too. I hope everybody sees it. And I look forward to our conversation next week and all of us helping get out the vote.
If you're not a member of their families, um, with filling out or dropping off their absentee ballots. So that's why we're centering groups like New Disabled South and Georgia Adapt, because they're already a community that's historically left out and marginalized disabled community. So now to rob them of giving them water or food while they're in a long line, or to not assist them with filling out their absentee ballots when more times than not, they actually don't have family members that can help them with this. So they require and rely on folks who are outside of their family to help them with that. So this Freedom Ride will start in DC. We will have a bus that goes from DC and goes, it's actually starting this Friday. Early Friday morning, 6 a.m., we leave from a church in DC and go, and folks from across the country, young people from across the country are joining this bus ride, stopping in Greensboro, North Carolina, and Columbia, South Carolina, collecting the voter suppression laws that are not just happening in Georgia, but across the country, right? Purging voters left and right by the thousands, and even millions. And then we're going to end in Atlanta, particularly my alma mater, Morehouse College, the alma mater of Dr. King and Julian Bond and so many other freedom fighters, and the AUC, called the Atlanta University Center. So we're going to stop there at the King Chapel, the Martin Luther King International Chapel. That's where we will have a march on early voting Saturday, this Saturday in Georgia, with the AUC students marching with voter registrations in hand to the polls, just 30 minutes away. And there will not just be a march there to the polls for those voters to vote who are registered in Fulton County, but there will also be good trouble, civil disobedience, a small contingent of about 5 or so nonviolent activists who will defy that immoral and absurd law and pass out water to voters. And we will be surrounded by faith leaders of different stripes who will be taking that stand with us. So that's a summary of everything. We're soliciting your prayers of safety and support, and appreciate the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Renaldo. This is so important. It's shocking. We have Reverend Caleb. I'm not sure if he wants to respond. It's like we were just talking about, how people are going against what is this Christian belief of treating everybody equally, and that you couldn't give somebody water is just disgusting, unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly contrary to teachings of Jesus. I mean, that's one of the big things, right? In Matthew 25, I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. And so, I mean, as you said, it's clearly Ronaldo, an act at voter suppression. And so, thanks for what you're doing and for the good work you're doing. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm fired up by the young people. Now I'm young still, I'm a millennial, but to see Gen Z also stepping up in this moment, particularly in this year where for the first time ever, millennials and Gen Z will outnumber boomers and the silent generation to be the largest voting bloc. That's why I have hope. The young people give me hope in this election, even as I see um, uh, voter suppression and voter erasure on steroids. I take solace in the fact that there are over 70 million millennials and 41 or so million Gen Z who will be eligible to vote next month. Starting now, right? Today, early voting starts in Georgia, I believe today. Certainly this week and Saturday will be the first weekend. So game on.
Ronaldo, I have a question. I'm a millennial, but I'm an old millennial. How long do we get to consider ourselves young for? Is it until Gen Alpha is able to vote? We're young until then, right?
Uh, I think it's until we, are closer to 40 than we are, 30. Or whenever we don't have to dye, whenever we have to start dyeing our hair, I think maybe
That's the time. Okay. It's coming for me. So
I want to put you in touch with Kat from Talking Eyes Media. They did several of their entries were with Georgia youth. They had about 5 entries with Georgia. So I want to make sure you guys are in touch because maybe they can film part of what you're doing, although I'm sure you have other people doing it. But
no, we're actually just now solidifying that part. So it would be helpful to see, you said these folks are on the ground there in Atlanta?
they went down to Atlanta. So let me put you, they're in New York, but you're starting in DC. So let me put you in touch today.
That'd be great. Yeah, we're solidifying that now. And Susan, to your point about will they vote, but will they vote? Well, we already saw it in the midterms, an answer to that in the affirmative. If the youth vote, without the youth vote, you would have actually saw a different turnout. Let's keep this conversation C3. A different turnout in the results in the midterms. In fact, it is a fact that you can Google right now that the youth vote in the 2022 midterms actually effectively canceled out the effect of the quote unquote senior vote in the midterm. So if they build on that and the general, then look out.
Yeah, there's actually 41 million Gen Z voters, and in 2020, they had almost record turnout. It was almost as high as at the end of Vietnam War. I actually can share a slide on that. It's really impressive. Young people really care. They're active, and if you vote 3 times, once you're young, you become a lifetime voter. So it's, over 40 million Gen Zers, and they voted at 55% in 2020. And the other thing I like to show, since I have this out, is why people vote. We spend so much time talking about the candidates instead of our future, yet, Gen Z says voting for a candidate is 13%, whereas voting in millennials, it's 10%. But really, it's because it's a responsibility. It can affect the outcome, and voting is a right. So that's why we're trying to shift the conversation about the future we actually all agree on. As we showed you earlier, all of the issues we're focusing on in the campaign, it's over 70% of Americans agree on these issues. So it's showing up and talking about this instead of just constantly talking about the candidates, talking about our future and co-creating our future. So
Holly, you and Ronaldo are both, it's so wonderful to hear the numbers of the Gen Z and the millennials. I'm way past that, but I'm so excited. My daughter's in there. In the depressing vote, what do they call when they're measuring the likelihood of voters? I've forgotten the term for it now. Are they reaching out to include the young people in the polls? That's the word I was looking for. Are they including the young people in the polls, or is it still that close with all of those young people that seem to have a brain that can conceive of and make a better choice? Are they included in the polling?
Yeah, so I mean, Holly, I invite you to also respond to this, but I tell all of the folks to ignore the polls. Because, young people, it's a lot more difficult to track them down in the traditional way.
Good.
We've seen pollsters track down older generations with landlines, for instance, right? I know I haven't been, contacted for a poll, and anybody I talk to who's younger, neither have they. So it's important
Right.
to interrogate those polls and see the sample sizes and see who they talk to. Many times it's like 500 people or 1,000 people, and it's rare that they actually talk to you know you know good sample sizes of young people. So I ignore the polls. They are always all over the place. Of course, we know they have been wrong in major ways, and I focus on voter mobilization and one-on-one conversations and what the mood is on these college campuses. And what I see is energy. I see young people who understand what's at stake, what the facts are. I shared more on the numbers just there in the chat from Tufts University on that number of 41 million. And the number out of that 41 million is 8 million who will be voting for the first time this year.
Wow.
So, you do the math on just that number, just the 8 million, right? And juxtapose that to the fact that the 2020 presidential election was determined by less than 44,000 votes across 3 states because of the Electoral College,
Yep.
right?
And the 2016 was also like 86,000 votes across 3 states, Wisconsin, Michigan.
Yeah. So when you look at, the fact that millennials and Gen Z will be the largest voting bloc for the first time, and you look at the numbers, and you understand that this is the most diverse generation in the history of this country,
Right.
then you are able to get a sense of hope that I have.
Yes. Thank you.
That is not to say that I don't have deep concerns. I do, especially around the purging and especially around the election denialism and what can happen right after November 5th. I'm deeply concerned about that. But I have hope because I see in the numbers and in the mood of the youth right now that courage did not skip our generation.
Wow. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. We went past our time again today because we had so many guests and such a wonderful, wonderful call. So please join us again next Tuesday, same time. We do this Tuesdays because that's voting day. Get this built in. And thank you all so much.